faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally here with Book Talk. Today's book we're exploring is WOOP Psychology. The subtitle is The Secret to Unlocking Dreams and Success. In Western societies, especially the US, many folks believe that staying optimistic and dreaming about a bright future where wishes come true can make it happen. A 2010 survey by PepsiCo showed over 90% of respondents believe an optimistic mindset has a huge impact, pushing society in a positive direction. 75% said they always hold the best hopes, even when the future looks uncertain. But the author of this book, Gabriel Eddington, has a different take. Oettingen, originally from Germany, is a psychology professor at NYU and the University of Hamburg. He spent over 20 years doing tons of research, proving that optimism doesn't always spark action. Ignoring reality and being blindly optimistic not only fails to motivate, but blocks dream achievement. He also found that the best way to achieve dreams is to picture the future while fully facing real obstacles. This gets us moving and going further toward our goals. Later, Erdingen refined his research and came up with a mental method to better inspire folks to chase their dreams. This method has 4 keywords: wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. Oettingen combined their English initials to name it WOOP Thinking. Oettingen wrote this book, WOOP Psychology, based on his years of work. The book got rave reviews right after it came out. Top media like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Washington Post covered his findings. Nobel Prize-winning economist James Heckman praised the book as thought-provoking, well-grounded, and helpful for readers of all ages to overcome tough times. Next, I'll break down the book's main points into 3 parts. First, why doesn't optimism work sometimes? Second, what is WOOP thinking? Third, how to practice WOOP thinking. Okay, let's dive into part 1. Why doesn't optimism work sometimes? The author notes there are 2 types of optimism. One based on past experience called optimistic expectation. The other is optimism that only focuses on desires without seeing real barriers, called optimistic fantasy. These 2 types of optimism affect behavior differently. For example, take weight loss. Some folks think, I've succeeded before, so even though it's tough, I believe I can do it again. This is optimistic expectation based on experience. But others might think, even though I failed several times, I believe that with enough optimism, I'll definitely succeed this time. This is unrealistic, optimistic fantasy. The author found that those with optimistic expectation generally achieve good weight loss results, while those with optimistic fantasy often lack motivation and have poor results. After extensive research, the author discovered that optimistic fantasy hinders people's actions in various areas like learning, work, relationships, politics, and finance. Students who fantasize about acing exams put in less study effort compared to those worried about failing, and their grades suffer. Graduates who imagine easily landing jobs send fewer resumes and get fewer offers than those concerned about job hunting struggles. The author also analyzed U.S. presidential inaugural speeches from 1993 to 2009, showing that more presidential optimism correlated with lower GDP and higher unemployment during their terms. In another experiment, the author had students engage in just a few minutes of optimistic fantasy, imagining everything going perfectly, like acing tests, enjoying parties, watching favorite shows, etc. A week later, these students reported being less focused and accomplishing less. Just a few minutes of optimistic fantasy impacted their whole week's performance. It's safe to say its destructive power is pretty strong. Why does optimistic fantasy have such negative effects? There are 2 reasons. First, for the brain, fantasy is like action. It easily mistakes imagined scenarios for reality. Many experiments prove this, like when people imagine physical activity, Their breathing and heart rate change as if they're actually exercising. During optimistic fantasy, the brain thinks the dream is fulfilled, so it relaxes and enjoys the pleasure of achievement. The author found that those engaging in optimistic fantasy experience a blood pressure drop, entering a relaxed, calm, even drowsy state. Losing motivation and becoming inactive, especially detrimental for tackling complex problems. For instance, surgeons, nuclear engineers, or air traffic controllers, their jobs demand extreme focus and quick reactions. If they fantasize about being exceptional experts who can handle anything, it actually reduces their performance. The optimistic fantasy can have negative effects. The second reason is it distorts how we gather objective information, making us unable to find truly achievable dreams. Chasing dreams, there's a big prerequisite. You got to make sure it's a realistic, achievable goal. Only then is the dream worth pursuing. Like a 100-kilo person fantasizing about losing 10 kilos monthly, hitting 60 kilos in 4 months. Sounds wonderful, but totally unrealistic. Anyone with medical knowledge knows weight loss isn't instant. It's a long battle. Rapid weight loss damages health and rebounds easily. For this person, no matter how eager to slim down, they must realize quick weight loss isn't feasible. A better goal is losing 2 kilos or less monthly. But those lost in optimistic fantasy can't stay objective. They only see wishful rosy futures, losing calm judgment, chasing unattainable dreams, resulting in constant failure. Together, these points make optimistic fantasy a true dream killer. However, the author doesn't dismiss optimistic fantasy entirely. In some cases, it can actually help. The book describes 3 scenarios. First, when people can only resign to fate, optimistic fantasy is needed. As said earlier, optimistic fantasy strips people of motivation. But in extreme cases where people are powerless anyway, it can't really hinder action. Here, optimistic fantasy actually helps endure hardship. That's the greatest victory. For example, in 204, Nazi concentration camps, to combat hunger and despair, prisoners collected recipes of inaccessible foods like chocolate cake, dumplings, potato salad. Many found hope and will to live by writing recipes and fantasizing about the future. The second scenario, when tasks are extremely simple, optimistic fantasy mainly hinders action for things requiring effort and difficulty. The most typical examples are work and study. But if the actions needed to achieve the goal are very simple, optimistic fantasy will actually boost our attention. Once you see the need can be met, you act immediately. For example, I optimistically believe that a certain phone will go on sale. Although whether there's a sale or not has nothing to do with optimism. An optimistic attitude will make me pay more attention to ads. Doing this kind of thing is super easy. Just browse the web more each day. If that phone really does go on sale, I can quickly spot it and buy it. The third scenario is using optimistic fantasy as an emergency measure to ease short-term negative emotions. It can calm people down. Long-term, this can sap motivation. But for those whose severe emotional issues that already affect daily life, the priority is to soothe the emotions first. Other things can wait. Optimistic fantasy can create pleasure, giving them temporary uplift. However, note that optimistic fantasy is a band-aid solution. If you don't find other ways to handle emotional issues, the pleasure will fade and bring more negative emotions. As the saying goes, drinking to drown sorrow only makes it worse. All right, let's summarize the first part. There are 2 opposing types of optimism. One is optimistic expectation based on past experience. The other is optimistic fantasy detached from reality. Numerous studies show that optimistic fantasy robs people of motivation and hinders dream achievement. Because during optimistic fantasy, the brain thinks the dream is already achieved, so it relaxes and becomes unwilling to act. Plus, it makes us lose objective judgment, chasing unattainable dreams. Since optimism doesn't always work, How should we chase our dreams? The author's answer is WOOP thinking. Now, in part two, I'll explain what WOOP thinking really is. It consists of two psychological components. One is mental contrasting, the other is implementation intentions. Let's cover them one by one. First, mental contrasting. It means imagining the future while also considering real-world obstacles. In research, the author found that when dreams are achievable, mental contrasting boosts people's drive, making them take grounded action. The author conducted an experiment with 90 computer school students. Before the experiment started, the author had students assess the likelihood of improving math scores and how important math was to them. After the experiment started, the students were divided into three groups. Group 1 was the mental contrasting group. They first fantasized about benefits of improving math scores, like gaining more knowledge and better job prospects, then considered real obstacles like laziness or distractions from other students. Group 2 was the optimistic fantasy group, only fantasized about score improvement without considering obstacles. Group 3 was the reality obstacles group, only considered obstacles without fantasizing about improvement. 2 weeks later, the author followed up with teachers to track student changes. Results showed students in the mental contrasting group who envisioned benefits while acknowledging obstacles studied harder and made greater progress, whereas those only indulging in fantasy or focusing solely on obstacles didn't exert extra effort, so their scores stayed the same. This happens because mental contrasting links dreams and obstacles. When dreams are achievable, obstacles take on positive meaning. We see obstacles as signposts pointing the way, overcome them, and dreams naturally come true. Thus, obstacles transform from stumbling blocks into stepping stones toward dreams. This mindset builds confidence, sparks determination, and gets people moving. Simultaneously, mental contrasting has another key function, helping people abandon unrealistic dreams early to seek achievable ones. In one experiment, the author had women do mental contrasting with the goal of meeting male models. Results showed women who believed meeting models was hard didn't gain motivation after mental contrasting. Only those confident about meeting models became more motivated after mental contrasting. Because the most beneficial dreams align with one's abilities and past experience, these goals have the highest success odds. By considering both dreams and obstacles, people objectively assess feasibility. If unrealistic, they pivot to viable new dreams. Beyond this, mental contrasting also helps people handle criticism better. Research shows we can identify shortcomings from external criticism, make targeted improvements to boost weaknesses, and achieve goals. Though everyone knows criticism fuels growth, many still prefer flattery over hard truths. The author found that those who've done mental contrasting see criticism as obstacles to overcome, a kind of deficiency that can be remedied. Thus, they take action to solve the problem, naturally growing from criticism and moving closer to their dreams. The effects of mental contrasting can also be observed physiologically. As one experiment proved, those lost in optimistic fantasy, regardless of wish feasibility, experience blood pressure drops after fantasizing, becoming inactive. But mental contrasting practitioners show greater blood pressure increases proportional to belief in achievability, with bodies absorbing more oxygen and nutrients to enter a ready-to-act excited state. This makes action more likely. If they find their wish unrealistic, blood pressure won't rise. The difference is stark. The author conducted extensive experiments across fields, consistently finding mental contrasting boosts motivation. However, the author notes this effect only comes from the correct sequence. Only by first fantasizing about the dream, then considering obstacles can you link them for motivational impact. Experiments showed considering obstacles first, then fantasizing about dreams yields zero effect. Say Xiaozhan dreams of acing an exam, but has club duties beforehand, plus an important party to attend. These obstacles leave little study time. If Xiaozhang first considers the party, then imagines exam success joy, he'll likely just think about party encounters and activities. He won't realize the party steals study time and hinders success. Only by first imagining success, then considering the party, will Xiaozhang see it as a dream obstacle and strategize solutions. That covers mental contrasting. Now, let's discuss implementation intentions. It combines with mental contrasting to form WOOP thinking. Implementation intentions. This concept comes from the author's husband, Peter Gollwitzer, also a psychology professor. While the author studied mental contrasting, Peter researched how to make plans most effective. We all know clear plans aid action, but many plans get abandoned midway. Is there a plan that drives and sustains action? After a series of experiments, Peter found that formulating plans in a specific way yields the best long-term results. The format is like this. If I encounter situation A, I will take action B. Plans made in this format are called implementation intentions. For example, a salesperson who wants to overcome nervousness might have an implementation intention like, "Oh, if I feel nervous, I'll remind myself I'm the top sales performer in the region, improving since last year." For a college student preparing for their thesis defense, their implementation intention could be, if it's 10 a.m., I'll sit down and write my paper. After analyzing hundreds of experimental results, Peter found that implementation intentions have a moderate to large impact on behavior, helping people stick to their actions. It also helps people stay focused and, after finishing current goals, not slack off, but keep pursuing new ones. Implementation intentions. The reason it works is that it sets up a quick conditioned reflex between situations and actions. When we create implementation intentions, we imagine the situations we might face and the actions we'll take. So the brain preps in advance, and once that situation pops up, it springs into action. This conditioned reflex happens subconsciously and super fast. Like that salesperson earlier, as soon as he feels nervous, no need to consciously think about what to do. He immediately recalls his sales stats. This reaction is totally automatic, no conscious control needed. This avoids conscious waffling and procrastination, boosting efficiency in tackling obstacles. The author found that implementation intentions and mental contrasting perfectly complement each other. Mental contrasting helps us pick solid dreams and act to overcome hurdles, which is the foundation for implementation intentions to work. And implementation intentions help us overcome obstacles more efficiently and stick with it, avoiding inconsistency. Together, they pack a bigger punch. The author named this combined mental method of mental contrasting and implementation intentions as WOOP thinking. And it includes 4 steps: wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. And that's where the word WOOP comes from. WOOP thinking has super significant effects in boosting action motivation over time. In one study, the author recruited 256 women and randomly split them into 2 groups. One group was the WOOP group. They got info on exercise benefits and, with the wish to boost workouts, practiced WOOP thinking for an hour to craft matching implementation intentions. For example, if the weather is sunny, go out for a half-hour jog. The other group was the control group, who also got health info but didn't practice WOOP thinking. Follow-up surveys found that within a week after practice, the WOOP group showed clear exercise improvement. A week later, WOOP group members exercised 1 hour more weekly on average than before practicing WOOP thinking, and also about 1 hour more than the control group. And this boost was sustainable. The WOOP group only practiced WOOP thinking once and never again after that. But 4 months later, their exercise time still stayed at higher levels with little change. If they could practice WOOP thinking regularly, the exercise benefits would last even longer. The author also ran numerous experiments Finding WOOP thinking helps people choose solid goals and persist in action across areas from improving relationships and quitting bad habits to boosting academic performance, overcoming obstacles to achieve dreams. With that, let's summarize part 2. WOOP thinking consists of mental contrasting and implementation intentions. Mental contrasting means first fantasizing about future dreams, then considering real obstacles, helping us find achievable goals and take action. Implementation intentions mean making plans in the format. If I encounter situation A, I'll take action B. This prevents procrastination when facing obstacles, boosting action efficiency. Mental contrasting and implementation intentions. Together, they form WOOP thinking, which can be widely applied across fields to help people achieve dreams. All right, that's all. What is WOOP thinking? Next, in part 3, I'll explain how to practice WOOP thinking. Depending on skill level, a WOOP practice session might take minutes or over 10 minutes. So first, find a quiet spot, alone, mute your phone, and ensure no urgent tasks to focus attention. The first step in WOOP practice is clarifying your wish. Relax, take deep breaths, and think of an achievable wish. The wish's timeline is flexible. It could be finishing a proposal today, landing new clients this month, or losing 10 kilos this year. If you have multiple wishes, pick the most important one to focus on right now. The second step is imagining outcomes. Visualize what happens when your wish comes true, as vividly and specifically as possible. If you want to lose weight, imagine how toned your body will look and how great clothes will fit. If you want a promotion and raise, picture this. With extra money, you could dine at fancy Michelin-starred restaurants, savor gourmet food, or take that long-awaited overseas trip. The third step is identifying obstacles. What's blocking your wish from coming true? Find your biggest roadblock. It could be a behavior like oversleeping, an emotion or feeling like exhaustion or anxiety, or a mindset issue like caring too much about others' opinions while neglecting self-care. Dig deep to uncover your core obstacle, then imagine how it might sabotage you. Here, you might realize the obstacle is bigger than expected and insurmountable. Then consider abandoning this wish, choosing another, and restarting root practice. The fourth step is creating your plan. If obstacles seem beatable, craft matching implementation intentions and repeat them aloud. Say you want to jog daily, but feel exhausted after work. You might declare, if I get home feeling tired, I'll listen to music for 10 minutes to relax first, then go jogging. All right, that completes one full WOOP thinking session. WOOP practice is super flexible. Any quiet spot works, whether at home, office, or on a plane. You can practice WOOP. More practice strengthens links between dreams, obstacles, and actions, boosting your motivation. Now, 4 key tips for WOOP practice. First, if you're new to WOOP, start with daily wishes, like jogging 30 minutes today, or dinner with your girlfriend tonight. It's easier to see results and build confidence. Second, while you can practice anytime, mornings are best for beginners. As the saying goes, the morning hour has gold in its mouth. Doing WOOP thinking in the morning prepares you for the day ahead. You can try it out. Before work each day, do WOOP thinking for career wishes, like finishing proposals or negotiating raises, and set matching implementation intentions. During work, you'll find yourself effortlessly handling challenges without overthinking, like an invisible hand guiding you through the day until bedtime. At night, reflect on how morning WOOP thinking shaped your day. This deepens your understanding of its impact. Third, don't skim the surface with wishes and obstacles. Dig deep to find your truest desire and most critical barrier. This maximizes WOOP thinking's effectiveness. An alcoholic's first thought when clarifying wishes might be, stop drinking. But is that their deepest desire? Is sobriety alone enough for them? Deep reflection might reveal their true wish, becoming a loving spouse and parent who earns family affection, Quitting alcohol is just a tool. Core desires ignite the strongest motivation. Plus, fulfilling one wish often sparks change across multiple areas. For example, winning family love requires not just sobriety, but quality time and emotional openness. Holistic change showcases WOOP's power. Same for obstacles. The first one you think of isn't always the root cause. Take alcoholism again. Someone might drink not from enjoyment, but toxic friends pressuring them daily while they can't refuse due to saving face, or where they might see themselves as failures using alcohol to escape. Identifying these core barriers allows targeted solutions. Fourth, adjust wishes proactively. Circumstances shift over time, so continually refine to find wishes fitting your current reality. Say a salesperson wishes for 10 monthly deals. Later realizing that's unrealistic, they should switch to an achievable target. Another situation is after practicing WOOP thinking for a while, we might uncover deeper wishes, and then we should re-practice with that new wish as the focus. All right, so far we'll summarize the key points of part 3. WOOP thinking practice is divided into 4 steps. Clarify the wish, imagine the outcome, identify obstacles, and make a plan. To make WOOP thinking practice more effective, we can start with short-term wishes within a day and practice WOOP thinking every morning. Yeah. At the same time, we need to keep digging deep inside to find the most desired wishes and the most critical obstacles and adjust wishes as time changes. With that, the book WOOP Thinking Psychology has been pretty much covered. Let's revisit the main content of the entire book. Optimistic fantasy that ignores real obstacles makes people lose motivation and drift further from their dreams. This is because optimistic fantasy tricks the brain into thinking the dream is already achieved, making it lazy to act. Um, at the same time, optimistic fantasy robs us of calm judgment, leading us to chase dreams that are fundamentally unachievable. The scientific method to achieve dreams is WOOP thinking, which combines mental contrasting and implementation intentions. Mental contrasting means first fantasizing about future dreams, then thinking about real obstacles. Implementation intentions mean making plans in the format, if I encounter situation A, I'll take action B. Combined, they help us find solid dreams, view and overcome obstacles more positively, and sustain action long term to finally achieve dreams. WOOP thinking practice is divided into 4 steps. Clarify the wish, imagine the outcome, identify obstacles, and make a plan. When starting WOOP thinking practice, begin with short-term wishes and practice every morning. Meanwhile, we can't stay superficial. We must dig out the most desired wishes and key obstacles and adjust wishes based on reality to maximize WOOP thinking's impact. All right. It's the interpretation of the book WOOP Thinking Psychology for you. The book notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.